It's episode 21 of the Toadstool Boardroom for the week of October 27th, 2022. My name's Logan Plant. Joining me this week, O'Dell Harmon Jr.
Hey, everybody.
Chris Shriver not with us this week. Two-man show. He'll hopefully return to us next week. He's out sick this week, but we got a great show planned that maybe he'll enjoy as a fan. We'll see. We're going to talk about Super Mario Odyssey today. It's been 5 years since Super Mario Odyssey came out on October 27th, 2017. I can't really believe it's been 5 years. That's a pretty long time ago at this point already. So we are going to do a big retrospective on that. We asked you for your thoughts on Odyssey. A couple of you wrote us in, so we'll get to that as well. We're going to talk about thoughts on the game at the time, thoughts 5 years later, favorite moment of the game, favorite kingdom of the game, and maybe where we want 3D Mario to go next. So we're going to get to that in the second half of the show. But first up, we got a quick news rundown here, a couple news items to get to here in the boardroom. First, couple of Pokemon things to talk about, O'Dell. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has introduced, how do you say this? Greavard? Is that how you pronounce this?
I've been saying Gravard.
Gravard, probably like graveyard. Yeah. Gravard, a ghost puppy Pokemon. He is adorable. What do you think of Gravard?
You know, it's cute, right? So I had a friend where she just lost her dog, and I was gonna be like, I think you're gonna have a new favorite Pokemon. But I didn't want to send it to her because it's still fresh. But then it made me realize, because I think, most of us has lost a companion animal. And I'm like, I want to zip playing off of that. And I was just like, I got sad and happy at the same time. So I honestly think it's a very clever idea.
Yeah, and Pokemon's no stranger to that, right? Like Lavender Town in the original Kanto region is a pretty depressing place that kind of is about the same thing. But I continue to be a fan of the Pokemon. I continue to be a fan of the Pokemon they're revealing for Paldea and Scarlet and Violet. Also, there were some impressions from Scarlet and Violet this week, and this comes way of Casey DeFreitas over at IGN, who reported that Pokemon trainers out in the wild will no longer attack you on sight, right? This has been a staple in the Pokemon franchise since the beginning, the exclamation point appearing over their head, and then you're basically locked into the battle without a choice. Apparently that's not the case, and it's up to you, the player, to decide if you want to play these trainers when you encounter them in the wild. What do you think of that, O'Dell? It's a big change.
Oh yeah, definitely big change. I mean, it makes sense. At first I was like, but then I was like, if you're in an open world and you're really exploring, I feel like you could easily get caught off guard and be like, I didn't see that person 30 yards behind me. How could I? And that probably would break like the immersion of exploring, just being like halted. And then like I know some people were commenting also. I think Case said it's like, we don't know if that's true everywhere. There's probably be some areas with some clear cut, they're in the way, you got to battle this person. But I think from a open world perspective, it makes sense that it'll be an optional thing. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the previews were saying like there's something above the train. There's something to indicate that this trainer wants to battle versus just probably an NPC out in the wild.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see how that works out. I like it. I think it's a nice change. I think that once again, it's kind of just playing into the idea of freedom and you do what you want to in Scarlet and Violet in the open world. And I think that especially like if you're going back through an area or an area where you're way over leveled and you just have to stop and fight these people, it can really grind the game pace kind of to a halt. So just another thing you'll get to choose to do, I think is pretty neat. So fan of what we're hearing about Scarlet and Violet. We're just a couple weeks out from having that game in our hands. And you're a couple weeks out from a big trip, O'Dell.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I am going to the Paldea region, a.k.a. Spain, a.k.a. the Iberian Peninsula, to purchase the game there. I am crazy, yes. But I had the idea, like, okay, my friend, just quick story, my friend was like, what if we traveled to the new region every time the Pokemon game was released about, the regions based off geographically in the real world? And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. And then I was like, but what if we did do that? He's not coming because he was like, I don't think I can do this shit. No. But like, I kind of just I was laying up at night and I was just like, what if I just did? It's around Thanksgiving, I can get vacation time for that, and here we are.
So, is this the first time you're doing it though? You haven't done it for any of the other regions?
No, I've never done it for any of the other regions. Yeah, well, most of them I was a child, so probably not feasible. But yeah, because, up until maybe like Gen 5 or 6, they were all just kind of generically Japanese. Mm-hmm. Like, the real life Japanese regions up until I think Gen 5 when it was in Nova, and that was like New York. So that was probably been the first time I could have done it.
And
But
then what? France was Kalos, and then Hawaii was Alola, and then Galar was the UK, and now Spain is
yeah,
Aldea.
yes, sir.
All right.
Correct.
Cool. Where are they
He
going to go?
says he
What's
doesn't
Gen
love
10?
Pokemon, huh?
Where are they going to go next?
Well, we haven't been anywhere on the African continent.
Mm-hmm.
To my best knowledge, we haven't been anywhere in South America. So those two seem like an easy pick.
Good candidates, yeah. Definitely. Australia.
Yeah, the Australia region.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Kangaskhan, regional variant. Hey, I used to love Pokemon. I still know a lot about it. And I want to. I want to love this one. I do. You know that. We got some marketing is picking up, O'Dell, for Fire Emblem Engage. That game is just like 2.5 months away, which is crazy that we're that close to the new year. But a big thing that's coming back that disappeared in Three Houses is the weapon triangle. I thought this was interesting. They posted this out on Twitter, Nintendo America. So in Fire Emblem Engage, each character wields various weapons, and certain weapons have advantage or disadvantage against other types of weapons. Swords beat axes, axes beat lances, and lances beat swords. This has been a Fire Emblem staple basically throughout the entire franchise, but then Three Houses kind of did away with that mechanic, and it wasn't as prevalent as it was. So I'm happy to see this back. I thought that Three Houses, as we've talked about on this show, strayed just a little too far from pure Fire Emblem for me. So this one is a sign for me, O'Dell, that we're heading back into that territory a little bit.
Yeah, I was worried that because the success of Three Houses, I don't know. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It was the most popular, Fire Emblem game to date. It had supreme mass appeal, or at least appeal further than the hardcore Fire Emblem audience. So I thought they were gonna do a whole oh man, this is where it's at. The Tengen Musi games, they was popular. So I thought that was just gonna be Fire Emblem's identity for the next 3 to 4 games, what have you. But for them to immediately in the next core game go back to its roots, so to speak, I was like, I believe this is the right choice. You got them with Three Houses. They're in the system. They're coming back. We need. I won't say it's a complete return to form. There's still Three Houses elements in there, but in terms of core gameplay, it's still traditionally a more traditional Fire Emblem game. So I'm excited about that. I might actually get this. I tried to play Three Houses. I never fully beat it. To me personally, it strayed so much that I was just like, I'm not saying this game is bad. It's just not Fire Emblem to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely felt that as well. A little too much focus on the school stuff for me. Pretty much most of what we've been seeing from this game is battling. And I don't know if I've said this on the show yet, but I'm going to play this one on hard. I think that's been my mistake with Three Houses, was I played on normal, and it was just a bit too easy, where even Awakening was a little easy, but then Conquest or Shadows of Valentia, those kicked your butt on normal. So I kind of got used to picking normal for Fire Emblem. But if this game is kind of similar vein of Three Houses in difficulty, I think it's time to play on normal and classic. Do you play on classic or casual when you play Fire Emblem?
I play on classic, and I'm the type of person that says I'm not gonna restart a game. I mean a battle if because of permadeath. But I'm not gonna lie, I give myself 2 to 3 times to do it, and then I'll say, okay, I'm for real this time.
But now we got the rewinds. The rewinds were a thing in the last couple entries, which makes it a little more forgiving. I can't even believe it. Man, when I was playing Fates, and it was kind of the only main game I was playing at the time, because I had a Wii U and a 3DS, so there weren't many games out at that time when Fates came out. Man, I restarted hour-long battles dozens of times in that game to redo them. It's man, I can't see myself doing that now. There's too much other stuff to do, so I'm now glad that they have the rewind feature in there.
I played Awakening for days on end because it took me, no joke, probably 2 weeks after that game released to finally get a copy.
Oh, yeah. It was hard to find at launch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I found it in a Target, I remember, and I think it was the last one there. Yeah, that game was tough to find. And now look at it. Now look at Fire Emblem. Now it's huge. Huge series now. Decade later. Wow, is that true? Man, Awakening's 10 years old?
That's really?
Crazy. Yeah.
Huh.
That's crazy. We're right around then. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
We got to talk about that game sometime. That's a great game. That is an outstanding game. A couple other outstanding games. Mario Party 1 and 2 coming to Switch Online on November 2nd. I know that the boardroom is really excited about this, but I was thinking, I don't have the N64 online controller to play these with. And
you got to get it.
I feel like I got to get it.
You got to get it.
Sold out, though.
Yeah, when Chris was hopefully able to get me mine, because I was thinking, I don't need a 64 controller. And the more I thought about the games that would come out, I'm playing, like, I've restarted playing Pokemon Snap because I played it, but then something else came out and took my attention away. And I was like, I don't think I could play this with a pro controller. Like, 64 games have such a controller scheme where it's like, it was made for this and nothing else.
Yeah, I played a few of the N64 online games on Switch, and like I played F-Zero, and I'm like, wait, what does each button do? And then you like hold, it's like R for R, but then ZL for Z, and it's just super weird because you never really use L on the N64, but they still make ZL and R the shoulder buttons you're holding to like drift and corner, and it's like, it just feels weird. But this is the only controller I checked because I wrote a story this week about how these Switch Online controllers are now compatible with Apple devices.
Really?
You can now pair them up as a Bluetooth controller starting this week. And I went to the store. I'm like, I should buy an N64 one. It's the only one sold out. And I think it's because it's like, it's the weirdest form factor. So the games like NES and SNES games feel fine on Joy-Con or a Pro controller. But the N64 games feel weird.
Oh, yeah, completely. You remember I live tweeted my replay of Paper Mario.
Yeah.
And I actually had to stop and wait for the 64 controller to come in because I was losing battles. Like, I couldn't get the action timing down, like holding it. Like, it just, I don't know if like, it was like mental lag. Something was just not connecting. Like, when I would do the jump, I would always mess it up. I'm like, I don't understand what's going on here. And I got the 64 controller. It was like as smooth as butter. And I was like, maybe it's just a me thing. Maybe it's just I remember it being like this and my brain can't translate.
Yeah. How's the battery life on those? On the Switch Online controllers?
Oh, pretty good, I would say, because I only say that because I'm the type of person that like I never charge my controller. Like when I'm done with it, I should be like, oh, I'm done playing the game, plug it up. I'm the guy that's like, oh, about to play for 3 hours. Battery's dead, of course, because it's been sitting here for a week. I'd say I'd be a couple of play sessions in of about 2 to 3 hours a piece before I needed to charge it.
That's pretty great. All right. I was thinking about this the other day, is that every single controller for a Nintendo home console, except for the Wii era, is on the Switch. And I guess you could, like, the two separate Joy-Cons are pretty close to a Wii Remote and Nunchuck, but, like, you can play with actual versions of NES, SNES, N64, GameCube if you have the adapter, and then Switch controllers. But Wii and Wii U, they're not there.
You know, I'm not the biggest fan of Joy-Cons, like as a single unit, but two Joy-Cons revolutionized gaming for me because the ability to lay down in any position and just be like, my hands are here, like behind my back, in front of my face, on my hip, was like a big game changer to me because it's the only controller you can lay down with and still play the game regularly. I don't think any other controller you could like lay, because you still have to angle your elbow up in this weird direction and stuff. Shout out to the Joy-Cons for that.
Yeah, I don't mind the Joy-Con. I'm glad the Wii Remote is gone. I really never liked the Wii Remote, even in the heyday of the Wii. I was never a fan.
If you ever wanted me to judge you harshly, play Smash Brothers with the Wii Remotes turned sideways.
I had to. I remember I was at a birthday party once and they didn't have enough controllers, and so I used a Wii Remote sideways, and I did win that tournament. I did win it with the Wii Remote turned sideways.
I'll never forget. Also, a birthday party story. They just had Wiimotes or whatever. They didn't have any. They didn't even have nunchucks. Like, this is how bad this Wii owner was. Like, I'm like, how do you not have nunchucks? And so there was a Mario Kart tourney, and they're like, Odell, we thought you were good at Mario Kart. Ha ha ha. I'm like, I'm playing with a Wiimote turned sideways. You're used to this. And oh my god, it was on like a big HD TV. You know, the Wii is an SD console, just standard definition. So the game just looked horrible, like on like their 1080p settings. And I'm like, oh my god, like Wiimote turned sideways, this fuzzy mess on a TV that's way too big. You know, this is the comically big HD TVs that are like, were still heavy. So it's like, you know, it's widescreen, but still has like the fat back to it. It was just, oh, I'm glad we're past that.
Yeah, I don't miss the Wii at all. We talked about this, I think, on our GameCube episode just a couple of weeks ago, that, man, GameCube games look so much better than Wii games do, even today. Like, it's not even close. The GameCube games have aged so much better than the Wii. And, like, I've been collecting some GameCube games lately, and I go to some game stores, and I just see the Wii games in the case. Man, I just have no interest in this console. Maybe I will later down the line and regret it. But as of now, I don't. Yeah. I liked it in the time well enough, but it's probably my least favorite Nintendo console. Yeah, I think so. All right, last two items here. That was Mario Party 1 and 2. We got way off on a tangent. We'll have to do some online boardroom matches of that with Mario Party, because those games are classic. Masahiro Sakurai and his ongoing YouTube video series, which you should check out if you haven't. Very, very cool stuff in there. One of the coolest things to come out is that he revealed original prototype footage of Dragon King, the fighting game. And if you're someone who doesn't know what that is Smash Brothers before it had Nintendo characters. So you can see this really old footage of this N64 game in development before they decided to make it what we now know as Super Smash Brothers. And it's just these like very polygonal fighting men, kind of look like Captain Falcon. They kind of look like remember the multi-man Melee from Melee, where you fight like wireframe guys?
They do like the wireframe guys.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if it's almost inspiration for that.
But
yeah, it's just super cool to see, because it's still Smash Brothers. They have Battlefield, like the classic tri-platform setup, a couple other stages, and it's still the percentages, and you fly when you're at the higher percentage. Like, it's all there. It's all Smash Brothers. Super cool that Nintendo allowed him to reveal some of this stuff, and that we got to see this in this video series.
What I think is always interesting about Nintendo and about this situation is because we think Nintendo makes all these genius decisions, which they do. I'm not saying they don't. But there's always someone else that's not Nintendo that pushed for this to happen. Sakurai said they liked the game, they loved the game, and he was the one that was like, what if we made them, instead of these dudes, Nintendo characters? Nintendo was like, what? Nonsense, get out of here. And he's like, no, won't we use like your biggest mascots and make them these fighters? And I'm always like, it's so interesting, all these great Nintendo games that are inspired, like, I want to say by like a singular person convinced Nintendo to do something. And it's like, I'm pretty sure at the time, like, he really fought for it, and they're like, I don't know, he got the approval, and like one of their biggest franchises ever. A game that literally fundamentally changed gaming.
Yeah, and there's stories too out there about how like NOA wasn't going to localize this thing, and they eventually did, but they were worried, like, we don't know about Link beating up Pikachu. And so that was a famous part of this too that I've heard about, is that it almost didn't come over here, and it was out in Japan well before it was out over here. The press knew about it, and they were like, is this thing coming over? And of course, as we know now, eventually the answer was yes, but for a time it looked like this thing could have stayed in Japan only, and if it had, would it have even gotten a sequel? I don't know. But I'm glad that they all made the decisions to go for it, because it's tough to imagine a Nintendo without Smash Brothers. Like, it is so much of what their identity is, and yeah, it's hard to imagine a world where Dragon King, the fighting game, came out instead. Yeah, probably still would have been fun though, because Smash is just a good time. And then last story here, we're not going to talk about this. We talked about it enough last week. The story has changed tremendously since we talked about it, though. Helena Taylor, former Bayonetta voice actor, released a new statement over Bayonetta 3. Basically trying to defend her place in the industry. We're not going to really discuss it here because we got other stuff to talk about this week. But also, Bayonetta 3 reviews are out. They're largely reviewing well. We're going to try and get someone in the boardroom who's played it, or one of us is going to play it, O'Dell. One of us has to, in the coming weeks here. So we will talk more about Bayonetta 3, but we didn't have pre-release access right now. So we won't be able to do that this week. But what O'Dell is playing is Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Came out last week on October 20th, sequel to 2017's Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Reviewed very well, but now we get to hear O'Dell. What do you think of the game?
So when I first started playing it, I was like, oh man, I'm kind of worried because I played the first one so extensively. Is this one going to feel samey? And like at the beginning, like it kind of did. And I was like, oh no, I'm not saying it won't be good, but I don't want to get fatigued halfway through the game. And no, the free range motion, like, it's weird. Now, you have it's not grid based. You kind of can just move in this area. There's so many layers of strategy that you can do, things you can do. Like, I'm learning that, like, I was so used to like mechanical turn, or like, okay, move, fire a weapon, do this, do that. But now it's like, okay, you can do so many actions. Like, the game tells you, once you fire your gun, you can no longer move. Like, that's it. You can still do actions, but you can't move anymore. But since you have the freedom, like, you just have like a map of where the character can just be and run. Like, there's so many things. The enemy types is very, like, there's enemies to where the only way to defeat them is to throw them off the map, which I just think is hilarious. Like, they're invincible for one reason or the other. So, like, that's a very video game thing. It's like, oh, I can't take your health out, so I just throw you out of bounds. Like, yeet you from the field of play. And it's just been a real good time. Like all my worries that I had within the first hour are pretty much all but gone. You talked. So I thought the battles were gonna feel very samey, and that the enemy types, just because I'd already seen them before, were gonna be that varied. Mm-hmm. But so they are. In terms of appearance, not so much. There's a lot of just color swaps. But what those enemies can do, despite it only being a color swap, really does change the flow of battle.
Okay.
And it gives you the freedom to, you can have any 3. Mario doesn't have to be one. Your skill tree, you can add points, you can take back points, you can rearrange it. And it's kind of just a freedom of choice to where I thought like, oh yeah, since I know what I'm doing, the game is going to be easy. But then I hit that point of like, oh, like, since there is so much variety, since there is so much freedom, that like, I never realized how much a grid-based system locks you into a certain way of thinking. And so you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, move here. But when you could just kind of move anywhere, and then the new team jump mechanic completely changed the game. And then now you have the sparks, the little Rabbid Luma combination things that give you elemental.
So strange looking.
Yeah, they give you elemental powers and things of that nature. So I really thought like the sparks were just kind of like, oh yeah, I want to buff, I want to have firepower, I want to this. But I'm at the point now where it's like, oh, I'm proving the enemies like, oh, these enemies are weak to this. I need this Luma to do this. I need this Luma to reflect. Oh, like, we're doing like there's new types of battles. There used to be like just kill everybody, reach the area, survive. But now there's other things like destroy these outposts and things like that nature. And I'm like, oh, this Luma could do this Luma could do that. And you get the ability to mix and match Lumas. And it's one of those things like, I am very impressed at how varied the battle system is and how deep it can go. Like, I thought I found me like my invincible combo. Like, oh yeah, put this on this guy, this on this guy. This is my strongest guy. And then I played a match where it was just like different elemental type enemies and long range enemies like mixed together. And like, I was just like, oh, I got demolished. Because I just thought like I could just run in it with my same team. So it really encourages you to play with different, the combinations of Marios and Rabbids. Like, even if you do find a good, solid team that's really working for you, you eventually end up in situations where like this team will not work. This combination of characters, like, I'm not saying you couldn't beat the level, but you're definitely fighting an uphill battle.
Do characters on the bench that you're not using progress at the same level as people in the battle that you are using, so you can switch kind of at will?
Yeah, everyone shares the same amount of XP, so
that's great.
When one character goes level 12, they pretty much all go level 12. I've seen like minute differences, like, oh, half my character reached level 12, the next battle the others have that didn't reach level 12 reached level 12.
How's the story? How much influence is there from kind of Mario Galaxy, like some of the trailers looked like, and how's that Rabbid voice acting I've seen that they have?
Okay, so for those who didn't know, the Rabbid, there was no voice acting in the first one. I did not know there was voice acting in the second one. So when they started talking, I was like, what the hell? Mm-hmm. And like their voices are kind of perfect.
Okay.
Which is weird. I'm like, whoever with the inspiration, it was like, it makes sense. And then there was a point where like there's like a Ubisoft game, there's a lot of collectibles, and I found the information disc to where Beepo, which is the little cursor / thing that guides your characters, he invented a Rabbid translator machine, which he now sorely regrets. And so like there's in-game canon to like why they're talking now.
That's funny. I was wondering about that.
And not doing gibberish. I was like, I appreciate it, but the Rabbid voice acting is very good. It's one of those weird things where like I don't expect it because the Mario characters are still very much wahoo hee, and then it's just like full on dialogue from Rabbid Mario, and it's like oh yeah, like
it's like talk. Mario doesn't talk. Like Mario doesn't have dialogue, but then the Rabbids do.
Yeah, and so it's funny though because they won't, like, let's say they say a paragraph, they won't say the whole paragraph. It'll be like Rabbid Luigi would be like, yo guys, check this out, look what he's like a DJ, like that's his vibe. He's like, yo guys, check it out, look what I found. And then like you read the rest of the text and I'm like, why do y'all voice act like the first two sentences and then don't say anything else?
Because they know like everybody, you like are mashing A, you're reading the dialogue, and you press A to interrupt their voice acting. So most people will never hear that second F anyways. So just don't record.
But yeah,
that's what I do at least. Like when you're playing like Fire Emblem or something like that, and the whole box is voiced, but you finish reading it before they're done saying it. Who sits there and lets it play out? I don't think anybody.
Yes, but yeah, no, it's not. It's still jarring to me because like I meant to like because I was like right now like I'm just running around doing collectibles and things and stuff. But there'll be that random mission where it's like oh, what's like okay, so Rabbid Mario is like stereotypically bad Italian, but like in the best way possible, if that makes sense. He's like, yo, what is this? What is this? What is this? I don't, like they really leaned into
coming out of a rabbit.
Yeah.
That's
like
ridiculous.
He almost sounds like Mario from the Super Show Mario for those old enough to remember to do the Mario. But they're hilarious. Like I'm still laughing.
That's awesome. So but like Mario Galaxy influences the story. How's that treating you so far?
Oh yeah, I didn't answer. Cool. It's the only Mario Galaxy influence I've seen is that the Lumas are there. Rosalina, Rabbid Rosalina is there. The villain, to my knowledge, is an OG villain. The only kind of thing is just like the Rabbids after the events of the first game apparently built a spaceship or spaceships and went to go colonize other planets, and at some point encountered Rosalina, and they kind of worship her. Like there's temples built to her, like that the Rabbids made throughout the galaxy.
Rabbid Rosalina or real Rosalina?
See, that I don't know. I assume real Rosalina.
Okay.
But yeah, because they say Rosalina, I feel like they very much say Rabbid this person.
Yeah.
Which is I haven't got that far in the story yet, but Blade, they made a point. I don't know if this is gonna. I assume it's gonna come back later. They're like, oh look, she's like, my name's Blade, and they're like, oh, we're gonna call you Rabbid. Oh, Edge, excuse me. Edge is the green-haired black rabbit with the long sword. It's like, oh, Rabbid Edge, and she's like, it's just Edge, and I'm like, oh.
Because there is no Edge. It's just a rabbit. There's no human version. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's just a lot bigger and fleshed out and more feature-rich than the first one. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I would actually compare it to, think of it like Galaxy 2 compared to Galaxy 1. As Galaxy 1, you have these huge built out, worlds to explore. That's kind of the first one. Like you're in a world and you're just kind of there for a bit. Versus this is kind of like Galaxy 2, where it's like a bite-sized version of what was in the first game, but a lot more depth. I feel that was biggest Galaxy influences. Like it feels more like Galaxy 2, where like the worlds are bite-sized compared to what they used to be, but now it's like more challenge, more depth, more stuff of that nature.
And I like Galaxy 2 more. I think it's a better game.
Oh, there you go. You're just suited up to succeed at Rabbids Sparks of Hope.
Cool. Very cool. Like to hear more about your progress. But now it's time to talk about a different Mario game, and that is Super Mario Odyssey, which, as we said at the top of the show, turns 5 years old today, the day this show comes out, Thursday, October 27th. And we love Super Mario Odyssey. Once again, wish Chris was here, because I know this is one of his favorite Nintendo games of all time. But O'Dell and I are pretty big fans, too. So we're going to take the next 25 minutes or so to kind of reflect back on Super Mario Odyssey 5 years ago when it came out. So, O'Dell, I want to start with kind of 5 years ago when you got this game. What'd you think of it? You were telling me before the show that you weren't so sure you were going to like this one.
Oh, yeah, no, I remember the reveal trailer. I remember, the T-Rex and all that stuff. And I was like, graphically, I was like, this game looks so jarring. Like, seeing Mario in these non-Mario environments, I was like, I really don't know if this can work. Like, I felt like if this is what they're going for, like at the time, I thought it was like, oh, they're trying to be like hyper realistic or hyper realism or whatever you want to call it. We saw him in New Donk, we saw him in the Jurassic Kingdom, and I was just like, I don't know. I think this is the wrong move. Like, we know the Switch isn't gonna be like this graphical monster, and now we're trying to do real things. And now I know those just two kingdoms. The rest of the kingdoms, outside of like that Final Fantasy one, they look very Mario-esque.
Yeah.
And just the whole gameplay stuff, like I wasn't a fan of the new gimmick. Like just this was purely off trailers and things. So
the capture mechanic, right?
Yeah. The stuff with Cappy was cool. The platform looked cool. The throwing the cap, running on the cap, and stuff like that. But I was just like, I don't know. This kind of open world, kind of not game. kind of realistic, kind of not. It felt too weird, too much of the weirdness in one title. And then I got it, and those fears kind of instantly evaporated. Like once, because I believe the primal, I forget the name of the Jurassic Kingdom, but that's like, because you're like
the Cascade Kingdom, I believe.
Yeah, like once I got past that to the next kingdom, I was like, okay, yeah, and like I understood the flow, because you know each game has this new language of like how the game wants you to operate and stuff. And I was like, the pieces of the moon. And I was like, I don't, but yeah, I was just like, this is probably the freest Mario has ever been in a game. And I'm all about platforming. That's why I love 64, because I was like, it's still a great platformer in like ways that Sunshine probably wasn't. And I was just like, this is just fun. This every kingdom is like, you know, the opening world of Mario 64. You're just running around, jumping, and just having a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved the game at the time. I picked it up at midnight at a Walmart when it came out. Not a hype midnight release at this Walmart. It was just this dude working in the electronics department, and I was there with a couple friends of mine that were also there to pick it up, and we were like, you got Super Mario Odyssey? And he's like, let me go check. And he comes back and he's like, you talking about the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? We're like, no. Yeah, Super Mario Odyssey. And he goes and checks again, comes back out with the copies we need, and it was away from there. I beat the entire game the first run through that weekend, because it's not a long game to just beat the main campaign.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking, oh yeah, not 999 moons.
No, I've still never done that. I still haven't gotten every single moon that there is in the game.
It is
I'd like to someday. Have you done it?
Yeah, it's brutal. It's like mind-numbingly hard for some of those moons. Like I remember I have this thing where like after I try like a gazillion times, I have to like YouTube a video just to see someone do. I'm not looking for it. It's like I just need to know it's humanly possible.
Yeah.
There's this one with the tanks, and you gotta like beat it in like 12 seconds, and I'm just like, it takes the most precision jump timing, non-screwing up ever. But yeah, I got them all. I'm the type of person when it comes to Mario games, like I gotta get all the stars. I gotta get all the. I will say this, in Galaxy, I did not do the Luigi ones because I was like, okay, no, that's too much. Like I got all 120 with Mario. I'm good. I'm not about to redo this all over again. Don't got that much time.
Yeah, I got enough to get to the. But we're going full spoiler, by the way. I think it should be clear we're 5 years on from game, but just in case, we're going full spoilers. I got enough of the moons to do the dark and darkest side of the moon that at the end of the game, but I did not get all 999 because you need like, I think it's like 700 or something like that to do those. So there's some I didn't get, like some of the like hint art ones that spread across the kingdoms that are like super convoluted. I didn't get those. And then I never finished like refighting all the bosses in the Mushroom Kingdom, where I think you only have like one hit point that you have to do. I never did all that, but I did most of the moons in this game. But anyways, back to originally beating this game. Yeah, I took that Friday off. I didn't do anything that day. Played it all day Saturday, and then Sunday morning I remember beating it, and it was just seriously probably my favorite gaming weekend of my life. Like it was just a smile plastered across my face the entire time you're playing through this game. Like I loved it from the start. I was never hesitant about it like you were. I was just super excited to jump in because it had just been so long since we had a Mario game like this. And 3D World, I love 3D World. I will defend that game. I think it's in the upper tier of Mario games, but that and 3D Land and even the Galaxy games aren't the sprawling exploration-based Mario that he entered the 3D era with. And it had just been so long. And then, you know, I'm not in love with 64. Sunshine has its problems. So this was like, for me, it quickly became, and still is 5 years later, the definitive Mario game to me, at least in the 3D space. Like, I just love everything this does. I think the capture mechanic is genius. It is such a cool reinvention of Mario. Like, because the traditional power-ups never really worked for me in Galaxy, where it's like, oh, you have the fire flower for like 15 seconds because they needed a way to limit that power, right? But this was like, there's no fire flower, no traditional power-ups like that. There are superstars, but that's pretty much it. And it's just up to you to throw your hat at everything in sight, see what you can do. Nintendo is the best at building puzzles around its new unique mechanics, and they did that here to an amazing, amazing extent with some of the puzzles you have to do. I think that the side-scrolling 2D parts where you turn into 8-bit Mario from Super Mario Brothers and are like platforming on the wall, like around a pillar. I'm thinking like the the Sand Kingdom specifically. There's some really cool ones there. Like, there's just some genius stuff in this game. I thought at the time, and still do 5 years later, think it's just incredible.
I'm curious because I know you have a hypercritical eye, and honestly, I think you could be more skeptical than me at times that you saw all the trailers and what was happening, and you wasn't worried at all. I'm just curious why you never saw anything that made you raise your eyebrows. Like, I don't know about this.
The thing that I thought was just crazy was the E3 2017 trailer where he captured the T-Rex. I was like, what are we doing? But I think that I was at that E3. That was my first E3 ever, and I got to play the game there. I waited in line for 3 hours to play Super Mario Odyssey. It was crazy. And I think when I went hands-on with it there is where I was not worried about anything anymore. And from that point, from mid-June to October, I was just like, I just got to get my hands back on this game. So I think actually getting to go hands-on and did you play that E3 demo? Were you there?
I was there, but I did not.
Just playing that demo was in New Donk City. And so just playing it, and because in the trailer it looks a little weird, him walking around with just these like more normally proportioned humans. It looks strange, but playing it, it's like, oh, this feels like Mario. It feels old, but also feels very, very new. So I think that's why I wasn't worried at all, is because I did get that hands-on time with it. And when that demo ended, I was just like, I just didn't want it to stop. I thought about getting back in line because there were so many different ways you could go in that demo, and I just wanted to do it again. I didn't. The lines weren't worth it, but yeah, I was sold from E3 on.
The biggest compliment I can give Mario Odyssey is it's something that very few games I feel like can do, but it consistently keeps getting better probably until the end. Like,
yeah,
and what I mean by that is like each new kingdom, even if it's something that seems simple, it's just like, oh, there's some hidden depth here, there's another hidden layer, there's another world. But each kingdom keeps superseding what the kingdom before did. And like the secrets are insane. What's the name of this kingdom? Crap.
Which one?
So for example, the wooded kingdom. I remember being super lost and being like, where's the rest of the moons? I can't find the moons. There's 2 more areas in the Wooded Kingdom. One's easy to find. You get the beanstalk, you go on the clouds. The other one is the deep forest. And my God, if I didn't accidentally die and fall off, I never would have found that area. I was like, oh my God. I was like, there's a whole nother area and you have to fall into the woods. Me being the pro gamer I had just never failed because, I'm not trying to die. But then, after that, you go to the Cloud Kingdom, and it's a very short kingdom, but it looks amazing, and it's stunning, and you have all the stuff. And then, eventually you make it to the Metro Kingdom, and then the finale of the Metro Kingdom, one of the highlights of the game, when, you're with Pauline, and she's like, having I don't know what celebration they're having or whatever they were doing that day, but that whole last level, quote unquote, of that kingdom is amazing. And then, we have I talked about earlier what I call the Final Fantasy Kingdom. It's the Ruined Kingdom. Probably the most unique boss battle in any Mario game. I will die on that hill. But then, after all this amazing, I'm thinking, like, what can they do to top this? And you get to the Bowser Kingdom, which is like this traditional Japanese palace. And it is just gorgeous. It's one of those levels that makes you forget you're playing the Switch.
Like, yeah, I agree. And it came out launch year, so it was like it was a little mind-blowing. Yeah, we'd had HD on the Wii U, but 3D World, again, love it, but it's kind of the art style 3D World goes for. It's a gorgeous game, but it goes for this very like toy-like, shiny, polished, bright art style, and then it's pretty much consistent throughout the entire game. I love how that game looks, but then Odyssey is like the woods, the Dark Kingdom, the Cloud Kingdom, Bowser, like you said, they all just look so different from each other, and it just really showed off the system. Like, is just, you never knew what you were going to see next. And I know some people complained about the length of Odyssey at the time. Like, it does only take like 8 to 10 hours to beat this game, like if you just run through. But the post game is great, and what I love about it too is there's just so many moons to find, and I found that to be a positive because it's like the Korok seeds. It's not really designed for you to find them all, right? And that's proven that like the reward for finding them all isn't something that big. It's very small. To get all the kingdoms, you need like 70% of the moons. So it's not supposed like, oh my God, I need to go on this checklist hunt to get them all. It's, I'm just exploring. I ground pound this suspicious spot, and you're rewarded with a moon. And I just really love that gameplay loop of they are just everywhere. Kind of like we talked about with that Super Mario Brothers 5 Mario Maker project. Like, they're so smart at thinking about what you're going to do in these playgrounds they create. And so you pull off some trick shot and you're like, is there something up here? And then when there is, it just feels so gratifying. Like, man, they thought of that. And Super Mario Odyssey is full of literally hundreds, because of how many moons there are, of those where it's like, man, they thought of that. Yes, there's some moons that aren't as good. There's some pretty tedious ones, but you don't need them all. So just don't worry about those ones, because right around the corner, there's another one. And that's something that I really, really like.
Yeah, because I feel like, as someone who's gotten all 999 moons, if you're not that type of player, don't be that type of player. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, that, because to me is, if I wasn't seeking out to get them all, there's some moons I would have said to hell with. Like, I would have just been like, it's not worth my sanity. Like, it's funny because you said you haven't got all the moons, but what I found the hardest thing was the darkest side of the moon, whatever the name of the final level is. Mm-hmm. I did the shortcut where, like, you can, like, fly and, like, ground pound and get to the
frog.
Yeah, you can get to the pipe if you do the little trick, because I got tired of, like, going through the normal way. I think you're, like, riding on the little lever thing. You can't fall, there's lava or something to get to. You know, you still have to do most of the level, but you can just skip that segment. I was just like, oh yeah, definitely skipping that. Because in my mind, I was like, I'm here to get all the moons. I'm not here to struggle my way through. Like, there's a long jump moon, like, where you have to, like, long jump, like, I kid you not, like, 15 times in a row on, like, these blocks that are, like, you know, 1 foot by 1 foot, and you basically have to be perfect. I thought I would never run out of coins. I ran out of coins on that moon.
Oh, wow.
I hit 0.
Uh-huh.
I was just crazy. Like, my God. I will have to go find the tweet, but I remember, like, I live tweeted. I was like, guys, I think I found the moon that's going to break me. I think I found it.
You got it, though.
Oh, yeah, I got it. You know, because at some point you have to, right? Like, I mean, I had like 2,000 coins. I ended up with 0, so...
Yeah, and I really like all the outfits in that game. I like that there's basically a moon in the recurring moons, where every kingdom kind of has its own play on the same moon, right? Like, you go to some place in the Luncheon Kingdom, and they're like, man, I really could use a chef right now. You go, you buy the chef costume, you come back, they're like, oh, thanks, here's this moon. Like, just really fun stuff like that. In the post game, when Peach then goes to travel through all the kingdoms kind of on her own accord, and you have to track her down where she at in each kingdom, and she gives you a moon. I like stuff like that too. But yeah, man, just what a game. I've never restarted this game because I still don't have them all, right? So whenever I have a craving to play this game, I just boot up the old file, play around, try to find more moons, and just keep getting that total higher.
You know, because it took me a while. Like, you know, nothing like, I'm pretty sure it was within a year of release, but it was just like, I kind of just played the game so much, just tracking down the moons. It had a long shelf life for me. Mm-hmm. And I always tell myself, am I going to start this game over? And I'm just like, no, because if I do it, I'm going to have to get all the moons.
Like, you got to get all of them again? You would have to 100% again?
I don't, every time I replay Mario 64, 120 stars. Granted, it's a much smaller order.
Uh-huh.
But if I'm being completely honest, I just assumed we would have had another Mario by now.
Me too. That a little bit. What we'd like to see 3 Mario do next, because it's a little crazy to me we haven't gotten one since then. We did get Bowser's Fury, which was great, but it was about 3 hours to like 100%. I love that game too, but yeah, we've not gotten the next main 3D Mario. But before we get to that, I do want to talk about some favorites here. Favorite kingdom in the game. Do you have one that jumps out to you, O'Dell?
Probably Bowser's Kingdom.
Okay, cool.
I already talked about it, so I was trying to think of. I mean, Mushroom Kingdom was a huge surprise. Like, it was not my favorite, but it was definitely like, whoa. Like, the Moon Kingdom was honestly a hell of a surprise too. Mm-hmm. I guess overall, yeah, it's just Bowser's. Like, there's other kingdoms I like better for a singular reason, but overall, it had to be Bowser's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my favorite, you mentioned it, the Wooded Kingdom. I love, like, the rustic vibe of that one, all these machines falling apart. I think the puzzles there are very, very cool. You mentioned it. The music there is really good. The music in this game we have to mention, amazing. This is one of the soundtracks I most often will just put on while I'm working during the day. Soundtrack is absolutely amazing. But yeah, falling down to the deep woods, and there's a T-Rex down there. Like, it'll just chase you around, living in the deep woods. That's a really, really good kingdom. And then I actually like the Cascade Kingdom a lot. The like main intro kingdom after you leave the Cappy Kingdom. I really like the Cascade Kingdom. I just think it's gorgeous. Love the music there too. Really cool introduction to the game. Yeah, those are my top two. But favorite moment in the game, I want to ask you too, because to me, there are very few games that have as many jaw-dropping moments as Super Mario Odyssey. Like, I think that I can think of 3 or 4 right off the bat, and it's like the festival you mentioned with Pauline, where you basically play Donkey Kong as Mario, running through that is just absolutely incredible. The going to the moon is unbelievable, even though it's staring you in the face because it's in the Jump Up Superstar lyrics the entire time. But just that whole thing is just super amazing. And then the ending, when you capture Bowser and fight your way out of the collapsing moon in what has to be the most Sonic Mario has ever felt. That ending is like so Sonic Adventure. The moon is collapsing. It's a vocal theme with like electric that you totally could have plucked out of a Sonic Adventure game, a canceled track. That is my favorite moment in the game. And I've said it before on podcasts throughout the years. That's my favorite moment in any video game I've ever played ever, is when, because, right, you beat Bowser, the moon is collapsing, Peach is there, you're like, what the heck do I do? How do I get out of here? And then the moment you're like, oh my God, you throw the cap at Bowser, you capture Bowser, and it's just off from there. And then I love that song that plays. I think it's called Break Free. Super cool song in that game. Just perfect ending to that game. It was like, wow, the game, like you said, it just keeps going and going and going, and it just never stops. And then the fourth jaw-dropping moment that I forgot when I was listening is the dragon fight that you said, where you just fight this Final Fantasy dragon in a Mario game. It's like, what? Like, geez. So my favorite moment, capturing Bowser, escaping the moon as him. How about you?
So it's funny, I gotta say this, and like this is one of the moments where I just freaking really hate the internet. That while I was playing the game, it was spoiled for me that you capture Bowser, and like it like, so like I knew it was coming, and I was so upset. Like the moment was still amazing, but you know, it's one of those things that I really wish I did not know was gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
Shame on people who thinks like, oh, I got in this point, like let me go talk about it and like post the goddamn video. Like, oh, you know, it's Twitter. You're just scrolling. Like you're not expecting to see something like that. Yeah. Like you could just been like, oh my God, I beat Mario Odyssey. The ending was, oh my God, if you know, you know. Like that's all you got to do. I can't infer nothing from, oh my God, it was amazing. But yeah, so you, as you were talking about that, I remembered that it was spoiled for me, and like I just got upset again.
So, yeah, that's rough.
But if not, that would probably be it. But you know, clearly, you know, the dragon, yes. The Pauline, you know, when you're playing Mario again, yes. I'm trying to think of another good moment. I'm just gonna say going to the moon, like you said, it was right there in your face, kind of the whole time. And I really love the Cloud Kingdom. You see the ship come in. Like I said, the kingdom, the Cloud Kingdom is basically what a boss fight, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, it's just a Bowser boss fight.
Yeah, but I really
love a couple other moons, but yeah.
Yeah, like, so I'll probably say entering the Cloud Kingdom, because, you know, the best moment of the game was spoiled for me because, you know, people are awful.
And the festival's a great one too. Yeah. That's I feel like most people's favorite moment is that festival, which is phenomenal. It's a really, really great part of the game.
I'm just trying to be different. But yeah, you know, you got Pauline singing her tune, you got the fireworks going off. It looks, again, like really looks amazing. As a game that was a launch title, I refuse to believe like you came out swinging that hard. Like I can't think of other games that even come close to it.
Yeah. What a first year for the Switch with Zelda and Odyssey. It's just an enormous 1-2 punch in the system's first 7 months. It's pretty unbelievable combination.
Yeah, you know, honestly, now that I think about it, it's still amazing that the Switch is still going this strong. Like, who would have thought, right?
Yeah. I fought for Odyssey in Game of the Year over Breath of the Wild, and I still stand by that. I like Odyssey more than I like Breath of the Wild.
You know, slight tangent. I was talking to a coworker of mine, and she was like, oh, I didn't like Breath of the Wild. And I was like, why? She was like, oh, I played like the first 2-3 hours. And like, the game has no music. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's ambient music. I mean, yeah, it's not like just these giant orchestral cues, you know, dun, 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 dun. But I was like, no music is a stretch. But it's funny because I feel like most people who don't like Breath of the Wild, see, they never in my mind got anywhere. It was like, yeah, like I'm like, did you even make it to Kakariko? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, and in my mind, I'm like, you basically never left the Great Plateau. If that's the case, at least that's how I see it.
Yeah,
but I can understand. Yeah, like
I like Odyssey more though. Odyssey is my top 10 of all time. I love this game.
Yeah, to the point I was trying to make is just, you know, Breath of the Wild, it takes a while for it to get going. It does. Versus, you know, Odyssey, you know, like we already said, you know, it's just a upward trajectory from beginning to end. Like I said, once I left the Cascade Kingdom, like, you know, of course you come back to it, but like after I was like, oh, okay, I'm good. I was like, okay, I'm good. The Sand Kingdom really showcases a lot of things, like you said earlier. Like, you know, there's the 2D segments, and like I said, like a lot of these kingdoms are very layered. You see the initial layer, like here it looks, here's like the boundaries. But like they're very like vertical slices. There's like a layer under the layer, you know, like in the Sand Kingdom, a literal underground layer. Like there's layers above and below each kingdom, and I kind of love that about like no kingdom is what it appears to be through your initial run through of it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna save what we want for the next 3D Mario till Chris is with us. So maybe we'll kick off next week's show with a quick follow up on this if Chris is back then. So we can hear what he thinks.
Do you think the next 3D Mario is actually on the Switch or on its successor?
Good question. Good question. I'll say I think it's coming next year. So I think
really that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's the big fall game next year.
We're gonna have another Zelda Mario year.
I'd love to, and I think we're gonna. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll save that to talk about with Chris. Last thing I'll say, I like the motion controls in this game. I use the split Joy-Con like it recommends you do on the main menu and everything, and I think it works really nice. And we actually got an email from a listener that agrees with how we'll read in a second. But O'Dell, did you play with the split Joy-Con where you use them to like flick the right one to capture and aim which way you want to throw?
Oh yeah, I didn't have a Pro Controller yet, so
yeah,
because you know it came with the console, so
early. And
it was just like, oh, I don't know if the Pro Controller is even available yet. Was it?
It was. Pro Controller came out on launch day.
Oh, okay. I didn't remember, but yeah, it was like
it was harder to find back then. It was a little tougher to find in 2017, the Pro Controller. But yeah, I like the motion controls. They work nice. With that, let's get to our listener comments on Super Mario Odyssey. Two of you boardroom fans wrote in to us. Thanks for doing that. You can always write in your thoughts, toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com, or find us on Twitter @toadstoolbr, just like Tim did, who said, hello, I'm glad I was finally able to make time to watch the show from last week. Well, thanks for watching, Tim. Mario Odyssey was a turnaround on the franchise for me. I was also always able to appreciate that Mario games were objectively good and always well polished. But this was the first Mario game I remember being actively excited for leading up to its release. I'm going to try to contain myself as I explain why, but to this day, I still consider it the perfect Switch game and personally my favorite Mario game. From a mechanics standpoint, it uses so many Joy-Con features, from not too cheesy motions to clever use of HD Rumble. The different captures seem to have been made to give you that small smile and think, ha, I can do this now. They, for the most part, hit that balance of feeling like a novelty, but also useful, empowering, but not overpowered. Really like that term, Tim. It's very good. And however you want to classify meat. Was there meat that you captured in this game? What's he talking about here?
Was there?
I don't know. I didn't know
there might be. I don't remember. I'm going to assume, were you a steak at some point? You were a grill, right?
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
You were a grill, right? You become a grill. That sounds right.
Yes. Yeah. The fact they're world-specific keeps things fresh, makes for great pacing, and gives an extra something to look forward to going into each new pocket open world. Those worlds also feature some peak design. Granted, some had more love than others. This is me chiming in. I do not like the Lost Kingdom, that one with all the poison that you get stranded on. That's the low point of the game for me.
It doesn't flow well when you go there. It just kind of. I can see that.
Yeah, it's my least favorite one. Some include things that serve no purpose other than fun, like cans you can just kick around in the Luncheon Kingdom, while some found some moons to be too easy. I think the whole package they produce embodies the phrase low entry, high ceiling. I very much agree with that. I also found the replayability surprisingly extensive too. A buddy of mine overseas and I added months to our playthrough, swapping best times in the different speed challenges. I could go on, but I'll wrap it up by pointing out that the New Donk Festival is probably one of the most magical moments in gaming. I was actually in a pretty rough spot when I got to it, and it lit me right up. In that moment, I was a superstar. Anyway, looking forward to the episode. Thanks for the great discussions board. Glad that moment was able to do that for you, Tim. Like I said, Odyssey is just a bundle of joy. It's just a smile from start to finish. Glad you had that experience. And it is the best Mario, so it makes sense why this is one that clicked with you.
I can, again, this could be the nostalgia talking. I think I enjoy Galaxy better. I'm just remembering. It's weird because it's like, I feel like Galaxy 1 and 2 kind of just need to be one game. Because, or maybe I just like riding Yoshi. Like, I love, since Yoshi's like one of my favorite characters ever. But like Odyssey, okay, how about this? Here's the thing. I think I personally like Galaxy better. But I can easily say Odyssey is the better game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see an argument for either. I can see an argument for both ways. But I personally just love Odyssey a lot more than Galaxy. We got one more note on Twitter from Rachel, who said, I loved Odyssey. To me, it encapsulates fun. I also love it because there are so many moons, you can pick it up whenever and find something new to do. It's my personal favorite 3D Mario game. My favorite moment is the Mario celebration in New Donk City. So both of our writers picked that one. It is definitely one of the highlights. And yeah, Rachel, I agree. Like, what a great game to be on the Switch, because you could just play for 10 minutes and get 3 or 4 moons and then put it back into sleep mode. And I guess other Mario games kind of had that, like Galaxy or 3D World, you could pick up, play a level and put it down, but just kind of existing in this open area, booting it up, exploring a corner of it, shutting it back down. I think that was just a really cool proof of concept in a similar way that Breath of the Wild was for what the Switch would be, just these kind of bite-sized, pick it up when you can pockets of gaming. But then if you want that longer session, dock it to the TV, sit down, and you could play for a couple of hours and still have a great time. So I agree, a really great game to be on the Switch.
I will say this, Odyssey is the best Mario has ever controlled in any game. Like, I see videos of things people can do, and it blows my mind. Yeah. I felt cool, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to long jump, throw Cappy, jump on Cappy, and, like, make this huge, super cool. Like, I skipped half these platformers, and then, like, I see people doing, like, just gymnastics, like, somehow resetting, like, Cappy to, like, throw again, and I'm just like, bro, how? But, like, you see them doing it, and it's almost like Nintendo intended for someone to do this. This wasn't someone, like, pushing the in-game physics. It was just like, no, like, they expected people to do this because it looks so effortless when Mario performs it. I'm just like, it's wild.
All right, if you're listening to the show, you didn't write in yet but want to talk about Odyssey, let us know, toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com or on Twitter @toadstool. But that's another episode of the Toadstool Boardroom. In the books, we're a weekly Nintendo podcast. We release at Thursdays, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and all of your favorite podcast services like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen to your shows. Chris will be back next week, hopefully. We're going to be talking about F-Zero next week in a very cool indie project. We're going to have the creator of Aero GPX on to talk about his creation and the F-Zero franchise as a whole. Very excited about that. But for now, you can find O'Dell on Twitter at
Odell Harmon Jr.
You can find myself at Logan J. Plant. You can find the show at ToadstoolBR. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. We'll catch you next time right back here in the Toadstool Boardroom.